Dear students, today we are going to read the third chapter of our supplementary book, A Pact with the Sun. The name of the chapter is The Shepherd's Treasure. Shepherd's Treasure. Who is a shepherd? First of all, you should know a shepherd is a person, is a man who keeps cattle, animals like cows, goats, sheep, and wanders here and there, grazing them. That person is known as a shepherd. In Hindi, we call it charwaha or sometimes gadariya also. These are Hindi words for a shepherd. Now, the shepherd's treasure. Treasure, you know, wealth, riches, khajana, daulat. So, this is basically an Iranian folk tale, a story told in the countries of Iran, in the Middle East. So, this is about a poor shepherd who once lived in Iran. He was, though uneducated, but very wise man. So, what happens with him? Let's read it in the story. In a village in Iran, there once lived a shepherd. He was very poor. He did not have even a small cottage of his own, a small hut, even to live. He did not have. He had never been to school or learnt to read and write because there were very few schools in those days. So he was not an educated man. Though poor and uneducated, this shepherd was very wise. Even then, he was a very wise man. He understood people's sorrows and troubles, their problems, and helped them face their problems with courage and common sense. Many people came to him for advice. Soon he became famous for his wisdom and friendly nature. His popularity spread all over. Even the king of that country heard about him and thought of meeting him. When the king heard about this man, he also thought that he should meet him. So, disguised as a shepherd and riding on a mule, one day the king came to the cave where the wise shepherd lived. So, in the get-up of a shepherd, disguised means hiding his identity in the get-up of a shepherd himself and riding on a mule, a kind of donkey. So one day the king came to meet him and reached at that cave that poor shepherd was living in. As soon as the shepherd saw the traveler coming towards the cave, he rose to welcome him. He stood up to welcome. He took the tired traveler inside the cave, gave him water to drink, and also a share of his own meager meal. Meager means very small. Whatever little meal he had, he shared it with that traveler. The king rested for the night in the cave and was greatly impressed by the shepherd's hospitality and wise conversation. For that night, king stayed there, and king was very impressed by his hospitality, means by the service whatever he gave to the guest. That is called hospitality, atithi satkar, and very wise talks, wise conversation he did. So king was impressed. Though still tired, the king decided to depart the next morning. He said, "Many thanks for your kindness to a poor traveler. I have a long way to go. Permit me to leave." So next morning, early in the morning, the king said, "Now I have to go because I have to go on a long journey. So many thanks for everything, for your kindness." Now, looking straight into the eyes of his guest, the shepherd replied, Thank you, Your Majesty, for paying me the compliment of a visit. Your Majesty. Now, only a royal is called Majesty, like we call Maharaj. Thank you, Your Majesty, for paying me the visit. Means you came to visit me, that's a compliment for me, so thank you. Now the king was astonished, surprised. He had identified me, he recognized me, but he was as well as pleased also. He thought, he is indeed very wise. I need people like him to work for me. So the king appointed this humble shepherd the governor of a small district. Although he rose to power and dignity, now he became governor of a district. He got the power, he got the dignity, but the shepherd remained as humble as ever, as gentle as ever. People loved and honored him for his wisdom, sympathy, and goodness. He was kind and just to one and all. Just means giving justice to all. His fame as a fair and wise governor soon spread throughout the country. Soon he was now a well known person for his wisdom. Now the governors of the other provinces grew terribly jealous of him and began to talk to the king against him. Now, when he was gaining his popularity, the other governors of the other states, provinces, became jealous and they started talking against him to the king. They said, okay, he is very dishonest. He keeps for himself part of money that he collects as tax from the people. Why did he always carry with him? They added an iron chest. They said he always carries an iron chest with him, chest or box or a safe, tijori. He always carries it. Why? Perhaps he carried it in it the treasure that he had secretly collected, the money, the gold, maybe whatever he has collected. He has kept all that in that. After all, they said mockingly that he was an ordinary shepherd and could behave no better because he was only an ordinary shepherd. So he would behave like that. So they all were talking against him like this. At first, the king did not pay attention to these reports, but how long could he ignore these governors and their endless stories about the shepherd? So, one thing was certain, the king also came to know that the new governor did carry an iron chest with him all the time. The king also came to know about that. So one day the new governor was summoned to the palace, was called to the palace. He came riding on his camel, and to everyone's delight, everyone was delighted. The famous iron chest was also there, fastened securely behind him on the camel's back. Everybody, those who were waiting, they also found that yes, that iron chest was also tied securely behind him on his camel's back. Now the king was angry when he saw it is true that he carries a chest. King was angry. He thundered, shouted loudly, "Why do you always carry that iron chest with you? What does it contain? What is it inside this?" The governor smiled. He asked his servant to bring the chest. How eagerly the people standing around waited for the shepherd to be found out. Now his identity will be revealed. But how great was their astonishment and even of the king himself when the chest was opened. Means when the chest was finally opened, how astonished they all were, astonished, shocked, surprised, even king. Why? No gold or silver or jewels, but an old blanket was all that came out. Only an old blanket was inside it. Now, holding it up proudly, the shepherd said, "This, my dear master, is my only treasure. I always carry it with me. This is my only treasure." "But why do you carry such an ordinary blanket with you?" he was asked. Surely you are the governor of a district, the king said. To which the shepherd replied with quite dignity, quite proudly. The shepherd replied, "This blanket is my oldest friend. It will still protect me if at any time your majesty should wish to take away my new cloaks. Even if any time the king, if he wishes to take away my new cloaks, these gowns which I am wearing, even if the king takes it away, this is the blanket, my oldest friend, which will still protect me." How pleased the king was, and how embarrassed the jealous governors became to hear this wise man's reply. When he replied like that, the king was very happy. But those jealous governors were very embarrassed, very ashamed. Now they knew that the shepherd was indeed the humblest and the wisest man in the land. They also now understood that indeed this man is most humble, most gentle, and most wise. And the king made him the governor of much bigger district that very day. So that day, king made him the governor of now a much bigger district as a reward for his honesty and reward for his humbleness. As I told you, it is an Iranian folk tale, a story which is told in the country of Iran, which is a Middle East country. Okay, now so this was the chapter. I think now you understand this well, and next we will be doing its question answers. So that's all for now. Bye bye.